Namaste, my name is Janapati Das. Thank you for tuning in. Please accept my respects. We are going to be reading again from chapter 3 in the Bhagavad Gita as it is, as translated and purported upon by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the feet of my spiritual grandfather. I'd also like to offer my most humble obeisances unto Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Srila Prabhupada, my life and soul. And we are going to chant some mantras right now. So please join along. Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramamsa Namine Gorakaruna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Pristayate Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramamsa Namine Gorakaruna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Pristayate Bhajat Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Govardhana Bhajat Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Govardhana Hari Mon Nitai Gaur Nitai Gaur Hari Mon Nitai Gaur Jaya Krishna Krishna, Haribol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Welcome again. We are reading from the Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 3, entitled Karma Yoga. Krishna is delineating the absolute truth piece by piece, unfolding it like a flower. And Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada inspects that and brings out the flavor of this flower through pure understanding. So we are reading from text 19. Tasmada Shaktaha Santatam Karyam Karma Samachara Ashakto Hriachan Karma Paramapnoti Purusha. Tasmat, therefore, Akshaktaha, without attachment, Satatam, constantly, Karyam, as duty, Karma, work, Samachara, perform, Ashaktaha, non-attachment, he certainly, Acharan, performing, Karma, work, Param, the supreme, Apnoti, achieves, Purusha, man, a man. So, some interesting words there. Of course, if we put the A in front of the word in Sanskrit, it means the opposite. So Shaktaha must mean attachment, and Ashaktaha is non-attachment. Translation, therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment, one attains the supreme. Krishna is telling Arjuna to basically do his duty as a warrior without being attached to the fruits of his activities, whether he's going to win or lose or who's going to be killed in this matter. It's just as his offering, completely dependent upon Krishna. Purport by his divine grace. The Supreme is the personality of Godhead for the devotees and liberation for the impersonalist. A person, therefore, acting for Krishna or in Krishna consciousness under proper guidance and without attachment to the result of the work is certainly making progress toward the supreme goal of life. So the essence of the Bhagavad Gita is to receive the absolute truth from a bona fide lover and devotee of Krishna. As we've said many times before, it's very difficult to get out of this material world by one's own mental speculation or abilities. This is often, referred to as the ascending process of ascending process of knowledge, where one tries to climb the absolute truth with their own abilities. It's kind of the common way that people try to figure things out. In the descending process, which is what Krishna is showing to Arjuna. Arjuna is receiving the information in a humble state. But not either way, Krishna is guiding his devotee, and the devotee is following. It's kind of like, if you know the absolute truth or you know the way out of something and you're like, I know this way out, you want to follow me, if you're saying, well, no, I think I got it. I can figure it out. I can figure it out, my way out. You got yourself lost in this world, but you somehow can figure your way out. So the devotee of Krishna is guiding the lost Jivatma out of the material world, but the Jivatma must do the activity of following the spiritual master. Arjuna is told that he should fight in the battle of Kurukshetra for the interest of Krishna, because Krishna wanted him to fight. To be a good man or a non-violent man is a personal attachment. But to act on behalf of the Supreme is to act without attachment for the result. So from a very sort of superficial view, looking at this, you would say, well, it's good that, many times there are people who have criticized the Bhagavad Gita from the outside, different, maybe religious faiths or whatever. They're saying, well, Arjuna just didn't want to kill his brothers, and war is bad, but Krishna was telling him he had to do it. But this is a kind of a view of ignorance, or a poor fund of knowledge, to not see really what is going on here. To be a good man or to be a non-violent man, in this case of Arjuna, he wanted to be the noble one, to, I will sacrifice my spot in the kingdom to not kill these relatives, and I can do this yogi thing over here and give up my kingdom, which was considered to be an attachment. Krishna was telling him to do something, to fight for a greater purpose that Arjuna maybe didn't really see initially. That is perfect action of the highest degree, recommended by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Vedic rituals like prescribed sacrifices are performed for purification of impious activities that were performed in the field of sense gratification. Here we get that field, Kshetra, right? The field of sense gratification. In the Bhagavad Gita later, we talk about these different kinds of fields, and the Kshetra Gajna, the knower of all fields, Krishna, and the field of our activity is considered to be the body, the activities that we are engaging in using in this material body. It's very fascinating. But action in Krishna consciousness is transcendental to the reactions of good or evil work. A Krishna conscious person has no attachment for the results, but acts on behalf of Krishna alone. He engages in all kinds of activities, but is completely non-attached. So the real meaning of renunciation, attaching yourself to Krishna, detaching yourself from other activities, and detaching yourself from the perceived benefits of doing this or that. Just doing things for Krishna. Text 20. Karma naiva hi samsiddhim astita jana kadayaha loka sangraham evapi sampashyan katum arhashi. Karmana, by work, eva certainly, he certainly, eva even, he certainly, samsiddhim perfection, ashtitaha situated, janaka adyaha, kings like Janaka and others, loka sangraham, educating the people in general, eva also, api for the sake of, sampashyan by considering, kartum to act, arhashi deserve. Translation, text 20. Even kings like Janaka and others attained the perfectional stage by performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating people in general, you should perform your work. Kings like Janaka and others were all self-realized souls. Consequently, they had no obligation to perform the prescribed duties in the Vedas. Nonetheless, they performed all prescribed activities just to set examples for people in general. Janaka was the father of Sita and father-in-law of Lord Sri Rama. Being a great devotee of the Lord, he was transcendently situated, but because he was the king of Mithila, a subdivision of Bihar province in India, he had to teach his subjects how to fight righteously in battle. He and his subjects fought to teach people in general that violence is also necessary in a situation where good arguments fail, like the Battle of Kurukshetra. Basically, they had tried years and years of diplomatic different greats. Even Krishna himself came, and Balaram came, and everyone, the Supreme Personalities of Godhead tried to persuade Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana to change their mind or to give even the smallest parcel of land to the Pandavas, but to no avail. So this was diplomatic means were tried, tried to the T. So at some point you have to kind of you try all the diplomacy and still people are doing bad and evil things. You have to deal with it. So for such a right cause there is a necessity for fighting. Although one who is situated in Krishna consciousness may not have any interest in the world, he still works to teach the public how to live and how to act. Experienced persons in Krishna consciousness can act in such a way to follow that others will follow. And this is explained in the following verse. So we come to the next verse, which is a very famous verse. But just the point being that even great pure devotees who are not expected to do certain kinds of rules and regulations and sacrifices will do it to basically set an example for common men. Krishna himself was an ideal householder. He didn't have to do fire sacrifices and act in a certain way, but he did that so that others would see. Text 21. Yadiyada charati stretas tata devataro janaha sadya pramanam kurute lokastad anuvartate yat whatever, yat and whichever. Acharati does he act, streshtaha respectable leader, tat that, tat and that alone, eva certainly, itaraha common, jana person, saha he, yat whichever, pramanam evidence, kurute does perform, lokaha all the world, tat that, anuvartate follow in the footsteps. Translation: whatever action is performed by a great man, common men follow in his footsteps. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So this is a really important point of what we were just talking about in the previous verse, but also in the point what we were talking about last time with the kinds of leaders in Kali Yuga. Whatever action is performed by the great men, so-called great men of the leaders, the people will follow. And this is why the leaders that we elect and put into are actually lower than Shudras. So therefore the populace itself is also lower than Shudras. Sinful, engaging in extreme Vikarma activities, murder, rape, burglary, violence against each other, destruction, self-centered activity, sexual deviation, and adultery, etc., homosexuality, just goes on and on and on and on. The activities are very sinful because when we look at our leaders, they're actually promoting the same kind of activities. Purport: people in general are always require a leader who can teach the public by practical behavior. A leader cannot teach the public to stop smoking if he himself smokes. Lord Chaitanya said that a teacher should behave properly even before he begins teaching. So this I had heard also from a god sister of mine who said that our dear Srila Prabhupada said that one should act as a disciple in thought and deed, and also in what's the word I'm thinking of? Priorities, right? So similarly, if we are a disciple or even if we're a student, we should act in a disciplined way so that others can see the way that we are acting. One who teaches in that way is called the charya, or the ideal teacher. Therefore, a teacher must follow the principles of Shastra, scripture, to reach the common man. The teacher cannot manufacture rules against the principles of revealed scriptures. The revealed scriptures like Manu Samhita and similar others are considered the standard books to be followed by human society. Thus, the leader's teaching should be based on the principles of the standard rules as they are practiced by the great teachers. The Srimad Bhagavatam also affirms that one should follow in the footsteps of great devotees, and that is the way of progress on the path of spiritual realization. The king or the executive head of a state, the father, and the school teacher are all considered to be natural leaders of the innocent people in general. All such natural leaders have a great responsibility to their dependents. Therefore, they must be conversant with standard books of moral and spiritual codes. The teachers don't do that now. No. All we got to do is look on TikTok and see what the teachers are doing now. They're basically leading the kids astray, definitely. Promoting the crazy philosophy, crazy philosophies. So this is Kali Yuga, but this is the point that was being brought up here. Text 22. Name patachti kartavayam trisu lokeshu kinchana nanavatam avaptavyam varta eva cha karmani na none me mine parta osan aprita asti there is kartavayam any prescribed duty Srishtu of the three Lokeshu planetary systems Kinchana anything na no Anavaptam in want Avyaptavyam to be gained Vartate engaged Eva certainly Cha also Karmani in one's prescribed duty. Translation. O son of Prita, there is no work prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I a need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in work. So once the point again, in the stories of Krishna is engaged in different activities through the world. He doesn't need to be. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's no world work or prescribed duties or sacrifices. They're all emanations from him. He's not obligated to follow any of these, but yet he does in purpose of the previous verse, so that common men will follow. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is described in the Vedic literatures as follows: Tam Ishvaranam Paranam Maheshwaram Tam Devan Tanam Paramam Cha Daivatam Patim Patitanam Paramam Parashtad Vidam Devam Bhuvan Nishamidam Natasya Kalayam Karanam Cha Vijate Natam Samas Chabyadikyash Chandristate Parasya Shaktir Vivi Daiva Shruyate Swabhaviki Ganabala Kriya Cha. I know Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, I hear him, he just whips these verses out. I'm like, woo. But, I give my best shot at it. The Supreme Lord is the controller of all other controllers. He is the greatest of all the diverse planetary leaders. Everyone is under his control. All entities are delegated with particular power only by the Supreme Lord. They are not supreme themselves. He is also worshipable by all demigods and is the supreme director of all directors. Therefore, he is transcendental to all kinds of material leaders and controllers and is worshipable by all. There is no one greater than him, and he is the supreme cause of all causes. He does not possess bodily form like that of an ordinary living entity. There is no difference between his body and his soul. He is absolute. All his senses are transcendental. Any one of his senses can perform the action of any other sense. Therefore, no one is greater than him or equal to him. His potencies are multifarious, and thus his deeds are automatically performed as a natural sequence. Svetasvatara Upanishad, 6th chapter, 7th to 8th verse. So, pretty much self-explanatory, everything we were talking about. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is no one greater than him. The demigods are not greater than him. He is the director of all the demigods, of all the energies that emanate from him, of all the jivatmas. And so that's to be understood. Since everything is in full opulence in the personality of Godhead, and is existing in full truth, there is no duty for the Supreme Personality of Godhead to perform. One who must receive the results of work has some designated duty, but one who has nothing to achieve within the three planetary systems certainly has no duty. And yet, Lord Krishna is engaged on the battlefield of Kurukshetra as the leader of the Kshatriyas, because the Kshatriyas are duty-bound to give protection to the distressed. Although he is above all the regulations of the revealed scriptures, he does not do anything that violates the revealed scriptures. So, pretty straightforward idea. He doesn't break any of the scriptural rules. He fulfills them for a purpose of educating the less intelligent to act accordingly to purify their consciousness. But it's not like they have to. He has to, like somehow or another, he has to achieve some kind of benediction, because then you'd be asking yourself, well, if he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and yet he's doing activities to try to achieve something, who's giving of this benediction? Is there some God higher than him? And the answer is no. He's just doing it as an obligation to educate us idiots who are lost in the material world. Text 23. Yadi hiyam navateyam jatu karmanyatad dritaha mama vartmanu vartate tante manushyaha partha savashaha. Yadi, if he, certainly, aham, I, na, do not, vartyam, thus engage, jatu, ever, karmani, in the performance of prescribed duties, atandrityaha, with great care, mama, my, vartma, path, anuvartante, would follow, manushya, all men, partha, osanaprita, sarvashaha, in all respects. Text 23, translation 4, if I did not engage in work, O Partha, certainly all men would follow my path. The Supreme Personality of God. See, Krishna did it. Krishna did it. Why can't we do it? Purport. In order to keep the balance of social tranquility for progress in spiritual life, there are traditional family usages meant for every civilized man. And indeed, society is supposed to be set up this way so that we have great leaders who are leading people in the upright way, in a moral, spiritual way, not in a sinful way that we do. The social structures that we see in Kali Yuga society are corrupted. They're corrupted. The parents are lascivious, and the parents are, doing lascivious things, dressing lascivious, so their daughters are dressing lasciviously. The fathers are sleeping around, so the children sleep around. When they get old enough, they just live by the standards. The leaders of our kingdom, of our kingdoms, of our countries are corrupt. So therefore we figured, they're doing it. Why can't we? If we're told that we can't do it, but our leaders are doing it, why not? So ideally, we should have a society that basically educates. But this is the means of Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is set up in this way that society will be corrupted, and therefore we will be educated accordingly. But because of this propensity of people in Kali Yuga to be very sinful, we're given a very wonderful process to help elevate our consciousness, and that is the process of hearing and chanting Krishna's names as brought to us by Lord Chaitanya. So we can be the beacon of light by our dear spiritual masters. The spiritual masters come in with the light in this great darkness of Kali Yuga and shine the light and give people an opportunity to come out and realize that what they're in is a mire of a great material ocean that they're going to get washed away and lost in the samsara cycle of life, birth, and death. They have already been for millions of years, and this is the beacon of light to say, come, be in the light, be a beacon of light, live uprightly, and great saints and devotees of Krishna, like Lord Jesus Christ, have did the same thing. So, although such rules and regulations are for the conditioned souls and not Lord Krishna, because he descended to establish the principle. Let me read this whole thing out. In order to keep the balance of social tranquility for progress in spiritual life, there are traditional family usages meant for every civilized man. Although such rules and regulations are not for the conditioned souls, and are for the conditioned souls, and not Lord Krishna, because he descended to establish the principles of religion, he followed the prescribed rules. Otherwise, common men would follow in his footsteps, and because he is the greatest authority. From the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is understood that Lord Krishna was performing all the religious duties at home and out of home as required of a householder. So, in the story of the Krishna book, you can go back and listen to my videos on Lord Krishna, the Krishna book, when Narada Muni came, and there are a lot of different stories where Krishna was in Dwarka with his queens. Every queen had a palace, and he had expanded himself to be with each of his queens. There's just 18,000 queens, so it was 18,000 Krishnas. And they were doing all different things. But when Narada Muni came to see him, he would go into a palace and he would see Lord Krishna acting and doing the fire sacrifice or offering water oblations to the ancestors, doing all these householder duties, taking care of his wife, playing with his children. Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has no attachment to anything in the material world, but yet as an ordinary householder, he acted accordingly, the upright way of how one should act. And that was really wonderful, because Narada Muni was like, wow. And then he would go into another palace, and there would be Lord Krishna, and Lord Krishna would be acting as if he hadn't seen Narada Muni forever, and he'd be doing some other activity. Very, very wonderful. And so Narada Muni was baffled by the omnipotence of the Supreme Person, the inconceivable potencies of the Supreme Lord to do that. Text 24. Uchidior ime loka na kuryam karma echeda aham sankarasha cha kartashyam upanyam imaha plajaha Ushideyo, put into ruin, ime, all these, lokaha, worlds, na, do not, kuryam, perform, karma, prescribed duties, chet, if, aham, I, shankarasha, of unwanted population, cha, and, karta, creator, shyam, shall be, upayam, destroy, imaha, all these, prajaha, living entities. Text 24, translation. If I should cease to work, then all these worlds would be put into ruination. I would also be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all sentient beings. So there is really wonderful, because Krishna is basically flipping the same argument that Arjuna made. He said, I shouldn't be fighting. We fight this battle, then we would be putting the whole situation into ruination, be causing unwanted population among the women, and we would just be creating destruction of peace for sentient beings. But here Krishna is saying that if he didn't do work, then this is what would happen. So it is a purpose of him, Arjuna, to be doing his duty in the service of Krishna. And also in a society point of view of showing that as a Kshatriya, it is his duty to fight this battle. And so, and that just would give an argument for every Kshatriya whenever they didn't want to fight a battle, just be like, I'm going to go off and live in the forest, So, purport. Varna Sankara is unwanted population which disturbs the peace of general society. That's pretty much our modern society. People having babies, no fathers around, the kids grow up to be completely delinquents, and because they have no father figure in their life, or their mother is just living from man to man, or on drugs. So they're basically, the parents are also reiterating a lifestyle to their children, and this is a pretty deep-rooted modern philosophy. A lot of it's to do with the modern feminist philosophy, which says that women can do whatever men can do, and men are not valuable in society. So therefore, men are just completely irresponsible and just sleeping around because they have no obligation in society to be responsible because they've been rejected by the modern feminists. And this goes contrary to what the traditional society would be, where the woman had a particular role, and a powerful role, as a woman, as the mother and the wife and the raiser of responsible children, and men were seen as supporting. The job was to support financially the house, which is, to say in modern day age, it's not that women should just be barefoot and pregnant, but because things are a little bit different. But we have to recognize the importance of both the men and the woman in society, and also in the family unit. So there's that. When Varna Sankara is unwanted population which disturbs the peace of general society. In order to check this social disturbance, there are prescribed rules and regulations by which the population can automatically become peaceful and organized for spiritual progress in life. When Lord Krishna descends, naturally he deals with such rules and regulation in order to maintain the prestige and necessity of such important performances. The Lord is the father of all living entities, and if the living entities are misguided, indirectly the responsibility goes to the Lord. Therefore, whenever there is general disregard of regulative principles, the Lord himself descends and corrects the society. So this is one reason why Lord Krishna appears to, exactly what it was said here, correct the society and what they're doing. We should, however, note carefully that although we have to follow in the footsteps of the Lord, we still have to remember that we cannot imitate him. Following and imitating are not on the same level. We cannot imitate the Lord by lifting Govardhan Hill as the Lord did in his childhood. So many so-called bogey yogis, they're called, my spiritual master calls them, who claim to be either the incarnation of some great devotee of Krishna like Lord Jesus, or a lot of times as the Supreme Lord incarnation. We ask them, can you lift Govardhan Hill with your finger, with your pinky? Can you, live forever? Are you capable of not, having to go to the bathroom? It's like these people are so full of nonsense, but their followers are full of nonsense too. We cannot imitate. Krishna lifted Govardhan with his pinky. He didn't even need to. He could have just made it lift up by itself. It is impossible for any human being. We have to follow his instructions, but we may not imitate him at any time. The Srimad Bhagavatam affirms, Natat Sama Chareja Chatu Manashapihi Anishvara Vinashayat Acharan Maudyad Yatra Udro Diyam Visham Ishvaranam Vacha Satam Tatai Vacharitam Kavachit Tesham Yat Svavacho Yuktam Buddhi Mam Tat Samacharet. One should simply follow the instructions of the Lord and his empowered servants. Their instructions are all good for us, and any intelligent person will perform them as instructed. However, one should guard against trying to imitate their actions. One should not try to drink the ocean of poison in imitation of Lord Shiva. Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 33rd verse, 33rd chapter, 30th verse. We should always consider the position of the Ishvaras, or those who can actually control the movements of the sun and moon, as superior. Without such power, one cannot imitate the Ishvaras, who are super powerful. Lord Shiva drank poison to the extent of swallowing an ocean, but if any common man tries to drink even a fragment of such poison, he will be killed. There are many pseudo-devotees of Lord Shiva who try to indulge in smoking ganja, marijuana, and similar intoxicating drugs, forgetting that by imitating the acts of Lord Shiva, they are calling death very near. Similarly, there are some devotees of Lord Krishna who prefer to imitate the Lord in his Rasa Leela, or dance of love, forgetting their inability to lift Govardhan Hill. It is best, therefore, that one not try to imitate the powerful, but simply follow their instructions. Nor should one try to occupy their posts without qualification. There are so many, quote-unquote, incarnations of God without the power of the Supreme Godhead. So this point Bhaktivedanta is making, I've met many of these so-called Shaivites. They're the devotees of Lord Shiva. They wear dreadlocks and they smoke ganja because Lord Shiva would smoke ganja. But Lord Shiva also a great devotee of Lord Krishna, and mentioned many times in the Krishna book as a servant of Lord Krishna, was also he also swallowed the poison that was churned by the demigods and demons in the great in the story in the Krishna book, in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so it produced so much poison, it was killing people, and Lord Shiva drank the poison and stored it in his throat. So the point of Bhaktivedanta is saying, if you're going to be so-called follower of Lord Shiva, or call yourself Lord Shiva, and you want to smoke pot, then you should be able to swallow an ocean of poison. So the best thing he's saying is, don't try to imitate the Supreme Lord or the great devotees of Krishna. You just follow their instructions and follow it nicely. Text 25. Shaktaha karmani avidavamsho yata kurvanti barata kuryad vidvams tata shaktash chikishur loka sangraham. Shaktaha, being attached. Karmani, prescribed duties. Avidvamshaha, the ignorant. Yata, as much as. Kurvanti, do it. Bharat, O descendant of Bharat. Kuryat, must do. Vidvan, the learned. Tatas, thus. Ashakta, without attachment. Chikir, shuhu, desiring to. Loka sangraham, leading the people in general. Translation, text 25. As the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to results, similarly the learned may also act, but without attachment, for the sake of leading people on the right path. It's very wonderful. It's not a very difficult thing to do. You follow the instructions of your spiritual master. And in that way, you show people the way the great devotees, like my dear godbrother Tusta Krishnadas, followed Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada so wonderfully. that they set the example of how people should act. Purport: a person in Krishna consciousness and a person not in Krishna consciousness are differentiated by different desires. A Krishna conscious person does not do anything which is not conducive to development of Krishna consciousness. He may even act exactly like the ignorant person who is too much attached to material activities. But one is engaged in such activities for the satisfaction of his sense gratification, whereas the other is engaged for the satisfaction of Krishna. Therefore, the Krishna conscious person is required to show the people how to act and how to engage the results of action for the purpose of Krishna consciousness. I think we can read one more. Na buddhi bedam janayed agananam karma sanginam joshayat sarva karmani vidvan yukta samacharan. Do not buddhi bedam disrupt the intelligence. Janayat do aganam of the foolish. Karma sanginam attached to fruit of work. Joshayat dovetailed. Sarva all. Karmani work. Vidvan learned. Yuktaha all engaged. Samacharan practicing. Translation: let not the wise disrupt the minds of the ignorant who are attached to fruit of action. They should not be encouraged to refrain from work, but to engage in work in the spirit of devotion. Purport: Vedascha Shaviraham Eva Veja. That is the end of all Vedic rituals. All rituals, all performances of sacrifice, and everything that is put into the Vedas, including all directions for material activities, are meant for understanding Krishna, who is the ultimate goal of life. But because of the conditioned souls do not know anything beyond sense gratification, they study the Vedas to that end. Through sense regulations, however, one is gradually elevated to Krishna consciousness. Therefore, a realized soul in Krishna consciousness should not disturb others in their activities or understanding, but he should act by showing how the results of all work can be dedicated to the service of Krishna. The learned Krishna conscious person may act in such a way that the ignorant person working for sense gratification may learn how to act and how to behave. Although the ignorant man is not to be disturbed in his activities, still a slightly developed Krishna conscious person may directly be engaged in the service of the Lord without waiting for other Vedic formulas. For this fortunate man, there is no need to follow the Vedic rituals, because in direct Krishna consciousness, one can have all the results simply by following the prescribed duties of a particular person. And it's also a really important point that Rupa Goswami also cites an example of trying to persuade people who are not interested in Krishna consciousness by the means of debate. And I think this kind of goes to that a little bit. You have to kind of see where people are and what kind of receptivity they are. A lot of times people feel like they want to challenge the power of the mind, or the power of the ability of the mind and the debating ability to persuade somebody into believing something. And this is not how one comes to the process of Krishna consciousness. Everyone's heart is a little bit in a different place. It's differently covered. In other words, people are in different levels spiritually. Sometimes you could be perfectly explaining, as the Bhagavad Gita as it is, perfectly explains, and we understand because of the mercy of Krishna and our spiritual master, and our desire to engage in the process of hearing and chanting Krishna's names, which cleanses the heart of all the dust. So a person could be hearing one thing and another person could be hearing another thing, or not even wanting to hear it. So they completely don't understand it. The good example is that I had many years ago, and I read a lot of different philosophy and whatnot, and books, different Buddhism and Hinduism and Christianity and Judaism, and I was raised a Catholic. And I came across Bhaktivedanta's Bhagavad Gita as it is. I had collected all kinds of books, but there was a edition, an initial edition of Bhaktivedanta's Bhagavad Gita. Originally, the publishers did not agree to publish the whole Bhagavad Gita as it is, but just a portion of it, which was very disappointing to Bhaktivedanta, but he went with it. And this particular book, which had certain verses in the purports of Bhaktivedanta, I had come across, and I had in my library, and I tried to read a couple times, but I couldn't understand it. To me now it seems crystal clear because of the grace of my dear Srila Prabhupada to explain these things. But at that time I couldn't understand it. I didn't understand it at all. Eventually I kind of gave the book away because I didn't understand it. It wasn't, at that time, it wasn't the right time for me to be able to hear that. So that in that line of thinking, then it's very important to kind of like not try to enforce ideas onto people who are not spiritually ready to hear them. In other words, we have to think of other ways to come to the Krishna. Either give them prasadam, chant, say Krishna, Krishna, chant to them, and But the debate of the Bhagavad Gita, it's not. If you see a person who's potentially could be offensive, then it's probably not a good idea to be debating with them, and just to leave that debate. And this is contrary to the way we do things in this Western society, because usually people get on this on the commentary board, and they're going back and forth with their ways of thinking, and that's just not how we delineate information. That's not the way that spiritual life is understood, because we must humbly approach a spiritual master. We must humbly approach, and we must be receptive. And this is true in this story that maybe you've heard before, and I'll tell you again. There was a great story was of a great spiritual teacher was visited by a local scholarly and educated professor, because the professor had heard, he was a professor of Eastern thought and written many papers and many books, and he went to go see this teacher because he'd heard about them. He wanted to share ideas with him. He was kind of basically thinking himself to be, here I'm a fellow colleague that I can discuss, ideas with and show what great knowledge I have. So he went to see this teacher, and the teacher welcomed him. The student ushered him in, gave him a seat and some water, and said, it's very, oh great Swami, I'm so-and-so professor, and I've written many papers on the Hindu thought, and perhaps you've heard of my name, and he said, well, you're welcome here. The spiritual master was like, you're welcome here. It's very wonderful to see you. Thank you for humbly visiting me. And so he said, we're going to start with some chanting of some mantras first, because this is what we do in the morning. And so the teacher started chanting the mantras, and the teacher stopped him and corrected him and said, well, actually, your pronunciation of the Sanskrit is not quite right. It's more like this. And so the teacher said, well, thank you for correcting me. And so the professor was getting hungry. He said, well, are we gonna eat? I'm kind of hungry. Do you have any food? And the teacher said, oh, well, we have a fast today because it's Ekadasi. And the professor, the food? What? We know food? are you sure? I thought Ekadasi was on, but and he started, trying to correct the spiritual teacher, and then he said, well, why don't we have some tea? And the professor said, oh, that would be nice. So the students came and they brought the cups, and the spiritual master had the teacup, and he poured himself some tea, and he went to pour the tea in the teacup, the little saucer, for this professor, and it was getting fuller and fuller, and the professor was like, oh, this old man is senile, because he's pouring it kind of high, and it was like, it started to spill over the lid into the sauce. I said, oh my God, this guy is senile, but that's okay, I won't, whatever. And then it was like, it started dripping on the table and going on the lap, and the professor jumped up and he said, the cup is full, my cup is full. And the spiritual teacher smiled and put the sauce down and said, yes, that is the problem. Your cup is too full. So sometimes people just feel like they know it all, and they want to teach people without realizing that they have to receive the information. So that'll be all for today. Thank you very much. Namaste.